I never thought there would come a day when I'd look back on my life and ask myself, how blind was I not to see it coming? But then, one seemingly peaceful afternoon, everything inside me collapsed. Like a building that suddenly lost its foundation. That day, I was sitting in the garage, wiping down my favorite fishing rod, getting ready for a weekend trip to the lake with some old friends. A breeze carrying the damp Georgia soil drifted through the cracked door, bringing with it memories of over 20 years of marriage. They say that when a woman changes, the husband is usually the last to know. I used to scoff at that idea. Now, I'm the living proof of that exact blindness. My name is Wyatt. I'm 52 years old and live in a quiet suburb near Savannah. I work as a lead engineer for a civil construction firm. Not flashy, but it's provided a stable, comfortable life for my family. I never asked for much. Just a warm dinner, a few weekend games, and a wife who'd laugh with me at the end of a long day. That was enough. My wife, Melissa, is a high school English teacher. She's always had a passion for literature, especially creative writing. We got married when I was 27 and she was 25. Our 2 daughters are grown now. Jenna is a junior in med school at Duke, and the younger one, Lacey, just got accepted into NYU for communications. I'm proud of them. Both driven, intelligent, and full of character. They're the only reason I believe I've done something right in this life. Our family used to be close. We'd go on camping trips regularly, and every month ended with a backyard BBQ. I used to think I was lucky. The woman I loved, the one I built a life with, was the last person I'd ever question. I trusted her completely, without a trace of suspicion. Our marriage had quiet moments, but never cold ones. Or so I believed. Once the girls went off to college, I looked forward to peaceful days. Time for us to reconnect, for Melissa to stop being just mom and become my partner again. I pictured us sipping wine in the evenings, talking about books she loved, listening to old college playlists. I even bought tickets to a play at the city theater, something I'd never done before, because I thought she'd enjoy it. But then, things began to shift, slowly, silently, and dangerously. Melissa joined a writing group, first an evening class at the local community college, then weekend meetings, eventually overnight stays at fellow writing colleagues' homes. I'm not the controlling type. I've always respected her space and supported the writing passion she once said she had to shelve for the sake of our family. But then there were things I couldn't ignore. The way she glanced at her phone and quickly tucked it away, messages from unnamed contacts, and kisses goodbye that didn't quite land. Once, I joked, "Should I start journaling too? Who knows? Maybe I'll find inspiration like you." Melissa gave a dry smile and said, "With that engineering brain of yours, please." It was a harmless jab, but it landed like a punch to the chest. I didn't blame her, at least not yet. But I started stepping back, watching, noting the smallest details. Sometimes, what breaks your heart isn't a single betrayal. It's 100 tiny cuts you never noticed, until you realize you've been bleeding all along. I didn't know what lay ahead. But whatever I uncovered next would change everything. Forever. The changes in Melissa became more obvious last fall. As the leaves turned along our quiet neighborhood streets, I saw something in her eyes that no longer belonged to me. Some nights she came home late, claiming the group was discussing a thought-provoking concept. Sometimes she'd slip in after I'd fallen asleep, reeking of white wine and an unfamiliar perfume. I told myself, maybe she's finding herself again. She deserves some space. But the unease kept growing, like smoke, seeping in through the cracks. Not enough to suffocate, but always there, making it hard to breathe. One Saturday night I was invited to a writing group gathering. It was held at Barry's house, a refurbished farmhouse near downtown. I've never felt out of place socially, but that night I felt like a stranger crashing a party meant for someone else. Melissa looked radiant. Tight burgundy dress, bold lipstick, loosely curled hair. When I saw her from the parking lot, my heart skipped a beat. Not because she was beautiful, but because she didn't look like she was mine anymore. Inside, I met all kinds of characters. A woman named Rachel wouldn't stop talking about historical fiction. Some guy named Gus brought a guitar no one asked him to play. And then, there was someone I'd heard about plenty, but was meeting for the first time. Dean. Dean was around 40, tall, salt and pepper hair, that smirking kind of smile, and a gaze that made you feel like an extra in the novel he hadn't finished writing. When Melissa introduced me as her husband, he didn't offer a handshake, just gave me a slight note, like I was a side note in his mental journal. I hovered near the kitchen, sipping wine and half listening. Dean always held the floor. Every time Melissa spoke, he jumped in. Verbally or with those loaded glances I could spot from 10 steps away. After that night, I was never invited again. Melissa told me, "You don't quite fit that creative atmosphere. I just don't want others to feel awkward." I chuckled softly, nodding. I get it. But I didn't. Not even close. The months after, the distance between us became more than just emotional. It was physical. She stayed up later, woke earlier. Breakfast was often just a single cup of coffee and a sticky note. Morning session today. Last weekend, she said she'd be going to Asheville with the group for a writing retreat. 3 days, 2 nights. I helped her pack without saying much. But the night before she left, while folding a scarf into her suitcase, her phone lit up. A message popped up. "Bring the black sweater, I still remember your scent from last time." I closed the suitcase slowly. Melissa didn't know I'd seen it. I stayed quiet, not out of fear, but because I wasn't ready for the truth. The next morning, as she headed out, I gave her a gentle hug and asked, "Dean's going too?" She froze for a second. "Yeah, but we're just colleagues. Don't start with jealous nonsense." I smiled and kissed her on the forehead. "I'm not jealous. Just trying to understand the woman I thought I knew best." Once her car disappeared down the road, I walked into my office, opened the computer, and typed a phrase into the search bar. Private Investigator Savannah. Not because I wanted control, but because I needed truth. The lies weren't what hurt most. It was the silence, the shifting eyes, the half smiles, the nights she faced the wall instead of me. I didn't know exactly what I'd find, but knowing one thing for sure, any truth was better than pretending to be happy. And I'd been pretending for far too long. After Asheville, I started watching even more closely. Melissa came home like she'd just returned from some awakening. Her eyes had changed. Her voice floated in a tone that belonged to a place I'd never been. I asked, "How was the retreat?" She didn't look at me. Amazing. Felt like I lived an entirely new life. It was a short answer, but it left a bitter aftertaste in my throat for hours. The next day, I made sure to come home earlier than usual. Melissa was in the living room, laptop on her lap, chatting on Zoom with someone, assuming I wasn't back yet. I stood silently by the staircase, behind a cracked door, and it only took a few seconds to recognize the male voice coming from the speaker. It was Dean. "Did you read the scene I sent you? The one where the woman leaves everything behind after that fateful night?" She giggled. "I did. You still know how to send shivers down someone's spine. But I think I like the idea of running away more than transforming. Both require real emotion, Melissa. Without that, every word is just an empty shell. And real emotion, you know you have it right now." "You really think so? Do you doubt it?" I didn't need to hear more. I backed away quietly, heart heavy like stone. 2 days later, while Melissa was out with her writing group, I was in her office replacing the router. Inside a drawer, I found a thick, beige envelope postmarked from Michigan. I didn't open it, but the corner clearly read, "Midwest Writers Intensive Program, Ann Arbor, MI, Summer Residency Confirmation." I've lived with Melissa for 25 years. I know every crease on her forehead, every tiny habit. But this was big, and she had never mentioned it. That evening over dinner I asked, "Hey, have you heard of some summer writing retreat in Michigan? I think I read about it in a magazine." She set her chopsticks down, pausing slightly. "Oh, yeah, they do it every year, but I'm not planning to apply this time." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Then what was that letter? I'm not a fool. A week later, she announced excitedly, "Good news! I just got a full scholarship for a 6-week writing residency in Michigan. Only 10 people were selected." I faked surprise. "Really? That's great. Maybe I can tag along, get a place nearby. I can work remotely. I'd love to listen to some of those writer talks." She laughed, but her eyes flickered with unease. "Why would you go?" "I'll be busy from morning to night. You'd be bored, and, well, it's kind of a private creative space. Maybe I could just visit for a few weekends." She cut me off, unable to hide the irritation. "Wyatt, this is a chance for me to be myself. I don't want to feel watched or judged. I hope you understand." I didn't say anything more. I had heard enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat alone in the garage, dim light hitting the side of a cold beer can. Her words, "I don't want to feel watched," echoed like an indictment. She wasn't just creating space. She was cutting me out. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through contacts, and found the one person I never thought I'd need to call. Private investigator, Brent Duval. "I need you to follow my wife. 6 weeks. Michigan. I'll cover all costs. I don't want opinions, I need proof." On the other end, his voice was calm, like he heard this every day. "Understood. I'll send regular reports. When does she fly?" I checked the calendar, June 12th. She has no idea I'm onto her. "Keep it that way. Don't change your behavior. Don't tip her off. Let her think she's in full control." I hung up, my chest hollow and cold. I had never been a suspicious man, but now, everything I once trusted, love, vows, faith, was rotting from the inside out. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal, or the fact she thought I was too stupid to notice. But I swore in the next 6 weeks I would know everything. And once the truth was undeniable, I would vanish from her life as if I never existed. I wasn't the predictable husband anymore. I was the storm she didn't see coming. I started checking Melissa's call history one Tuesday night after she went to bed. She left her phone charging on the kitchen counter, notifications faintly glowing on the lock screen. No passcode. Maybe she was too confident, or just used to no one in the house ever crossing her boundaries. I opened her call log, skimmed the list. No Dean, but there was an unknown number that popped up repeatedly, especially late at night. I wrote it down, then checked the messages. Most had been deleted except a few fragments. "Did you bring the new draft?" Or, "Still remember the scent of cedar on your shirt." Anyone with a brain could read between those lines. I placed the phone back and headed upstairs, lying down next to Melissa. She breathed steadily, her back to me, like there was nothing left to say. The next morning, as I got ready for work, Melissa handed me a small envelope. "I got you something. A little getaway." I opened it. 2 tickets to Alaska. A 2-week fishing trip at a remote lake camp. "It's all inclusive. I booked it for you and Uncle Derek from your office. I know you've always wanted to try real wilderness fishing. You deserve a break." I nodded, tucked the envelope away, and tried to keep a straight face. But one question kept echoing in my head. Why would she want to send me far away, right when she was about to leave for Michigan? I didn't react right away. I needed more proof. That night, after Melissa went upstairs, I sat alone in the dining room, turned off the lights, and quietly stepped into the hallway. Our old house had a ventilation duct that ran from the 2nd floor down to just above where the landline phone sat. I used to hear our daughters call from college through that vent. Now, I was using it for something else. Around 10:45 p.m. the phone rang. Melissa's voice was soft but clear. "I told you, he's not suspicious yet. I already gave him the Alaska tickets." He nodded and didn't ask a single question. "No, I can't just tell him not to go to Michigan, that would be too obvious. But with those tickets he'll be busy packing and heading off to fish like a kid with a Christmas present. I want those weeks too, Dean. I've imagined every detail. No phones. No interruptions. I need time to be myself. With you. Yeah, I miss you too. Tonight I'll work on the scene where the female character silently leaves her husband. Sound familiar?" It felt like someone poured ice water straight into my chest. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. Melissa was still reading, the yellow lamplight casting a glow on her cheek, making her look like the woman I once loved. "Wyatt, what's wrong? You look off." I sat on the edge of the bed and smiled faintly. "Nothing, just tired." "Maybe you're right. I should go on that fishing trip." She nodded and turned another page, but I knew she was smiling to herself. I didn't sleep that night. In the dark, I opened my laptop and pulled up the website Brent Duval had recommended. They offered GPS tracking, environmental audio recording, and even undercover operatives posing as students. Michigan wasn't a major city, but with a branch near the university area, they had the manpower to monitor a 6-week program. I filled out the request form, selected the full surveillance package, and submitted it. In the notes section, I wrote, "Need visual evidence, video, audio if possible. Target, Melissa Harper, age 50. Accomplice, Dean Caldwell, around 42, white male, tall salt and pepper hair." The next day, I confirmed with Melissa that I'd be going to Alaska. I even called Derek, my old college buddy, and asked him to help cover for me in case Melissa checked in. Derek agreed without many questions. I simply said, "Melissa needs to believe I'm thousands of miles away, but in reality, I'll be closer than she thinks." I'd booked a flight to Chicago instead of Anchorage. From there, I'd rent a car, find a place near the university, and wait. Not to confront, not to beg. But to end it. Once I saw with my own eyes what I needed to see, there would be no more doubt. And Melissa, the woman who once meant everything to me, would become the past. Not through a screaming match, not with a divorce paper handed over, but through total disappearance. I wouldn't be there anymore. No longer someone she could take lightly. No longer the kind, easy-to-fool husband. I would be the ending she never saw coming. I didn't go to Alaska. 3 days after Melissa flew to Michigan, I arrived in a small town near Ann Arbor, less than 5 miles from the dorm she was staying in. On the outside, I was just a late summer tourist. On the inside, I was a man waiting for the final blow to slice through a 25-year bond. Brent Duval, the private investigator I hired, wasn't one for small talk. On day 1, he sent me a short message. "She's with Dean. No effort to hide it." The next morning, I received a file of photos. Melissa and Dean were sitting together at a campus cafe, their hands touching under the table, smiling at each other like kids in love. In one photo, Dean leaned in to whisper something, and Melissa tilted her head and laughed, like a girl experiencing butterflies for the first time. I zoomed in. Her left ring finger, where the white gold wedding band I once gave her should have been, was bare. That afternoon, Brent sent a video. The footage was a little shaky, probably from a hidden body cam. Dean and Melissa exited a seminar building, holding hands. They stopped in front of the dorm building and kissed. Not a quick kiss. It was long, hungry, like they were in a world no one else could enter. Like she'd never had a husband. Like I never existed. I closed my eyes. Not from pain, from rage. Rage that I had been blind for so long. For the next 3 days, I received morning reports. The routine didn't change. Writing class, lunch, dorm room, afternoon stroll, back together again. Like newlyweds on vacation. On the 5th day, Brent messaged, "Tonight we'll try the specialty device." I knew what he meant. A tiny fisheye camera, thin enough to slide under the door frame undetected. The kind of device you only use when there's no room left for denial. The next morning, I got an email with the subject line, "Confirmed." I hesitated for a few minutes before opening it. My hands were trembling. My temples throbbed like war drums. When the video loaded, I muted it, but the images still cut straight through me. A dim dorm room, lit by soft, yellow light. Dean sat on the bed, shirtless. Melissa walked into frame wearing the white blouse. I saw her pack. They lunged at each other like starving animals. No words, no hesitation, no protection. I fast forward, over 20 minutes, uncut. When I saw the ending, both literal and symbolic, I stopped. The final image. Melissa collapsed on Dean's chest, exposed, unguarded, and smiling with satisfaction. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I just sat still. In that moment, I felt like Wyatt Harper ceased to exist, no longer the patient, loyal fool. A part of me died, quietly and completely. Brent called. I didn't pick up. There was nothing left to say. What I needed was now in a flash drive, in an email, and in my mind. More than enough. I walked out of the motel room, down a tree-lined street toward the town center. The scent of freshly cut grass drifted through the air. A group of college students passed by, laughing freely. None of them knew a man had just lost everything and still wore a calm face. I stepped into a photo shop, quietly printed 3 stills from the footage. Nothing too graphic, but clear enough to leave no doubt. On the back of each one, I wrote, "This is how you rewrote the final chapter of our life together." I mailed them to our home, the address I had once painted on the mailbox myself. At the same time, I texted Brent. No more surveillance, I've got enough. I couldn't return as if nothing had happened, but I also knew this. The next time Melissa walked back into that house, Wyatt wouldn't be there waiting. There would be no dinner, no smile, no man she could keep fooling. I won't expose her in front of friends, nor will I humiliate her in front of our daughters, but I will remove myself from her life completely, with the coldest silence she has ever known. The price she'll pay won't be a shouting match. It will be the absence of the man who once put his entire life in her hands. Once I'm gone, she'll realize that what she chose to hold on to, Dean, fleeting feelings, a fake passion, will never be enough to replace the husband who quietly stepped away. And that is the real punishment. I didn't return to Georgia right after the surveillance ended. Instead, I drove east, through Ohio, then Pennsylvania, until I reached the northern coastline I'd only ever heard about in stories. Portland, Maine. I needed cold air. I needed the ocean wind. I needed a place so far removed that Melissa would never imagine I'd choose it as the beginning of a new life. 3 days later, I filed a transfer request to the Portland branch office. The official reason was relocation due to family matters. My boss didn't pry. He just looked at me for a long moment and said, "I understand. I had to do something similar once." That single sentence made me want to leave even faster. I rented a small 2-bedroom apartment near the harbor. From the window, I could see fishing boats quietly docking at sunrise, seagulls calling out like they were announcing the start of a new cycle. The apartment wasn't big, but what more did I need? A place to sleep, a kitchen to cook, and a quiet corner to think. I hired movers to bring all my personal items, books, technical files, the family photos I wanted to keep, and the leather chair I'd worked in for 2 decades. I didn't take the old bed. I didn't bring the sofa where she once laid her head on my lap reading drafts. The rest of the house in Georgia I left to her, but not as a gift. I met with my attorney and said simply, "I want a divorce, no negotiation, no mediation. Do you have evidence?" More than enough. We made a detailed plan. I gave her the house in exchange for no alimony. She could keep her car, but all joint bank accounts would be locked and split clearly. I changed the insurance beneficiaries to our 2 daughters. I signed the papers as fast as a snap, no hesitation, no stumble. I chose to send the email on a rainy night in Portland, as wind howled against the window panes like nature itself was angry for me. In the message, I said little. I attached 3 photos. They kissed outside the dorm. Melissa lying in Dean's arms. No wedding ring. A blurry shot, but clear enough to erase any "we're just writing partners" excuse. Beneath each one I wrote, "I've seen enough. I'm stepping away." No accusations, no bitterness, just the raw truth. At the end of the email I typed carefully, "Like final specs on a blueprint, I divorce you. No response needed. Legal documents are en route." Then I hit send. A second later, I powered off the phone, cut all contact, blocked everything from her. No more emails, no texts, no missed calls. I wiped every trace of Melissa from this new life. Wedding photos, old love letters, anniversary gifts. I didn't burn them or keep them. I dropped them off at a local charity center, letting someone else decide what to do with those memories. I knew the day would come when she returned from Michigan, walked into that empty house, saw the divorce papers right in the middle of the dining table, noticed the handmade card I once left for our daughters was gone from the bookshelf, saw the family photo, now missing one face. I wanted that moment to feel like an earthquake shaking the world she thought she still controlled. I didn't leave a goodbye. No flowers, no apology. I had stayed far too long in a story where I wasn't the main character anymore. Now, I'm not her husband. I'm the man who vanished. I walked out to the coast, watching the waves crash against the rocks like they were trying to wipe away all traces. I didn't know what lay ahead. But one thing for sure, I was no longer the man standing behind a woman who never deserved me. Melissa Harper, I hope your little creative muse knows how to fix pipes, change tires, and listen without talking back. Because you just lost the one man who did all of that silently. I couldn't stay silent with our daughters forever. No matter how normal Melissa pretended to be, once she got home, saw I was gone, got no calls, no messages, she'd try to contact the girls. I couldn't let Jenna and Lacey learn the truth from their mother. I had to be the one to tell them first. I chose to meet Jenna first, in New York. I flew from Portland to LaGuardia, bringing only a small backpack and a USB drive that held everything Melissa couldn't deny. I met my daughter at a cafe near Columbia Medical Center, where she was doing her clinical rotations. Jenna walked in wearing her white lab coat, still smelling faintly of disinfectant, her hair tied up, eyes wide with surprise. "Dad? Oh my God! Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" I stood up and hugged her tightly. The scent in her hair brought back memories of school drop-offs, of years untouched by betrayal. I didn't waste time. After ordering drinks, I placed the USB on the table. "Sweetheart, I didn't come just to visit. I need to tell you the truth." She looked at the small black object, then back at me. Her face dropped. She knew something serious was coming. I told her everything, step by step. From the sleepless nights, to the suspicious calls, to the photos I never wanted to see. Jenna didn't cry, but her face went pale. "Mom, cheated on you?" I nodded, reaching for the US. "If you're strong enough, I'll show you. I don't want you learning this from her, or worse, from the media if anything leaks." She stayed quiet for a long time, then nodded. I opened my laptop, inserted the USB, and pulled up one photo. The shot of Melissa and Dean kissing outside the dorm, her arms wrapped around his neck like a girl in love. Jenna covered her mouth and pushed her chair back. "Oh my God, what was Mom thinking? Doesn't she realize everything you've done for her?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. Your mom thought I was the ground beneath her feet. Always there to step over." After the meeting, I walked Jenna back to her dorm and she hugged me tightly. "Dad, no matter where you go, you'll always be home to us." 2 days later, I arrived in Boston to meet Lacey. Unlike her sister, Lacey was blunt, harder to sway emotionally. We met at a ramen shop she frequented. As soon as I sat down, she looked at me suspiciously. "Mom's been acting weird. She keeps calling and asking where you are. She said you needed some time alone." But I don't believe her. I gave a small smile. Good, because the truth is even worse. I didn't use the USB. I handed her a printed set of 3 photos, just enough to say, everything. Lacey flipped through each one, her lips pressed tightly. When she finished, she placed the photos down and looked at me. "She slept with him." I didn't answer. She continued, "You don't need to explain more. We get it. Mom destroyed whatever the Harper family meant. She's not the woman I once admired." I started to speak, but she held up her hand. "What's your plan?" I told her briefly. "Divorce. Job transfer. Starting over." Lacey nodded. "I won't say anything to her. But if she calls, I'm not pretending everything's fine. She needs to face the consequences." That night, I stayed at a hotel near campus. Close to midnight, a message from Lacey arrived. "Dad, I love you. You're the only adult in this mess. Don't ever think you lost anything. It's Mom who lost everything. I read that message over and over. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part felt like I was finally crawling out of the wreckage. My daughters, one gentle, one sharp, understood. And more importantly, they were on my side. I no longer had a family in the old sense, but I still had Jenna and Lacey, and they were strong enough to walk with me, no matter where I chose to go alone. Life in Portland, Maine was unlike anywhere I'd lived before. No red dirt roads of the South, no suffocating heat that soaked your back the moment you stepped outside. Here, the cold came quickly. The sea breeze carried salt and the cry of seagulls every morning. The chill was biting, but it made my mind sharper than ever. Each morning, I started my day walking along the harbor. Once, I saw an old man tossing bread to sea ducks and a group of school kids sketching the water. These little scenes, forgotten in my old life, had become what I now looked forward to. Work at the branch office went smoothly. The engineering team was younger but eager and attentive. I didn't have to explain much, they just got it. Sometimes my silence and calm seemed to gain their trust more than words ever could. Henry, the new project lead, was welcoming. A middle-aged man who loved fishing, craft beer, and crossword puzzles. We hit it off quickly. One Friday evening, he invited me over for dinner with his wife and 2 little daughters. Under the warm glow of the fireplace, I sat there, eating pie and telling stories about my girls. I didn't feel like a survivor. Jenna and Lacey called more often. Jenna sent a photo from her first hospital shift. Dark circles under her eyes, but a glowing smile. Lacey showed off a video of her theater group performing a short play on campus. I saved everything to my computer, created a folder called Things Worth Keeping. On weekends, I rode my bike to the beach, where a few older folks gathered near the old pier to sip coffee and play checkers. They called me the guy from Georgia, then quickly pulled me into the group. No one asked why I left. In Maine, people respected silence, if that's what you chose to keep. I also joined a solo rowing club on Saturdays, not because I was athletic, but because rowing across cold water made me feel small and, strangely, lighter. Melissa was no longer the name that haunted my nights. Though she occasionally sent emails or texts, half apology, half blame, I didn't reply. I archived them into a password-protected folder, not to read, but to remind myself why I left. One early winter night, I sat alone in my apartment. Snow had just started falling outside. I made soup, played some soft jazz, and lit a scented candle. No one sat across from me. No one asked, "Rough day?" But strangely, I didn't feel alone. I rewrote a list of things that told me I was truly alive again. Eating breakfast in silence. Laughing with Henry's crew over a miswired schematic. A surprise message from Lacey. "You eating enough, Dad?" The sting of cold wood floor under my bare feet in the morning. Each small thing was proof. I didn't die with that marriage. I was reborn. I wasn't hoping to find love again. I didn't need someone to fill the void. I needed time to fill it myself, to patch the spaces I had ignored while trying too hard to be the perfect husband. One afternoon, I sat at a seaside cafe, coffee in hand, staring out at the ocean. A woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair, sat at the table next to me and smiled when she saw me reading The Old Man and the Sea. I used to love that book. A lonely man battling something bigger than himself. I nodded, said nothing. But in my head I thought, no more battles. I'm just learning how to swim back to shore. My new life isn't glamorous. There are no trophies. But it's mine. Free. Clear. The last message from Melissa came on a spring morning as I sat on the porch sipping coffee with Henry. The Maine sky was strangely clear that day, sunlight shimmering off my ceramic mug and casting reflections across the wooden table. "Wyatt, please, can we talk? I can't take your silence anymore." I read it once, didn't open it again. I simply held down and filed it into the no response folder. That label was all I needed to remind myself not to slip back into old wounds. Melissa had sent a total of 27 texts and 11 emails since the day I'd disappeared from her life. At first, they were apologies. Then came the blame. Then emotional appeals. Sometimes she used old family photos. Other times, it was just a simple line, "I miss you." But none of it was ever enough to shake me. Frank didn't fare much better. One day, I got a message from an unfamiliar number with a note. "I'm Natalie Dean Caldwell's wife. Thank you for sending me the truth. You have no idea how many wasted years you just saved me from." I didn't reply, but deep down I felt something strange. Justice, even when late, still has weight. I heard through an old acquaintance in Georgia that Frank had been kicked out of the house less than 2 weeks after Melissa returned. Natalie didn't just throw him out. She filed for asset division, forced the sale of their home, and demanded half of everything, including the car Frank used to brag about like it was a symbol of success. I imagined him dragging a suitcase, standing outside a cheap motel, trying to call Melissa for shelter, only to realize she had nothing left to offer either, because Melissa had failed too. The writing workshop ended in chaos. She submitted her manuscript to 3 independent publishers, each one rejected it. The shared feedback lacks authenticity and emotional depth. Maybe they didn't realize what she had written was squeezed from the bleeding heart of her former husband. I imagined her sitting alone in the empty Georgia house. No me, no kids, no book in print, and no man willing to stay past a single writing season. But I didn't feel triumphant. I don't live to watch people fall apart. I just want freedom from the cycle of pain and betrayal. I won't say I'm healed. The cracks are still there, especially on cold nights when I hear waves and wonder, what if she had just told the truth back then? But I no longer see myself as a victim. I'm a survivor. Life in Maine continues gently. I've learned to cook more than just ramen and scrambled eggs. I joined a portrait sketching class. Though my lines are often crooked, I enjoy focusing on small details. The curve of a lip, the wrinkle near an eye. As if I'm relearning how to truly observe people, carefully and honestly. Jenna visits sometimes, bringing medical journals and bakery boxes. Lacey video calls weekly, always with loud friends in the background making faces. They fill the spaces that no longer belong to a wife who never deserved them. I haven't dated anyone, not because I've closed myself off, but because I'm enjoying the feeling of not having to please anyone, not having to ask, "Are you okay?" just to hear a sweet little lie. I just want to continue like this, living fully, laughing freely. And if someone comes into my life again, it'll be a choice, not an obligation. One weekend afternoon, while painting the deck of a small boat I'd just bought, Henry walked over with 2 cold beers. "You got a name picked out for her?" I wiped my forehead, thought for a second, then smiled. "Yeah, I'm calling her Second Wind." A breeze rolled in from the sea carrying the scent of salt, wood, and something that felt like peace. I looked out across the water, not to escape anymore, but ready to begin a new voyage. One where I hold the wheel, no one else. Wyatt used to be a devoted man, convinced that love and loyalty were enough to preserve a marriage. But betrayal woke him up, forcing him to let go of the past and rediscover himself. Now, amid Maine's cold mornings, he lives a new life, free, peaceful, and no longer bound by lies. He's not the man who got left behind. He's the one who walked away, to begin again, stronger, deeper, and finally, whole. What do you think of Wyatt's decision? Should he have forgiven, or was walking away the right move? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more real, emotional, and meaningful stories about family life.